What is going on today in this video? We're going to be breaking down and just nerding out about my group's recent 19 run. Now, I say group, but we're going to be playing with a few different DPS players today. We're playing with Walks Toxic, who's playing Cinerogue Static on the Fury Warrior, and Axton playing Feral Druid. The DPS I normally play with are just weren't free today. They had like raid or were just busy with real life stuff. So we're running with just a slightly different composition, but still sporting that physical composition. I'll have my talents and my route linked down below. So if you want to check those out, you can. Notably, I am playing Ox Dance for this key. I wanted to try it out to see if it felt any better. Going into this key, I was a little concerned with some melee attacks as well as some of the Graveblade damage later on in the key, especially towards the end of the dungeon when you have two of them. I was hoping that Ox Dance would help me stagger a little bit more of that damage and hopefully live. I was happy with it, but I'm not happy with the damage that I had to drop by dropping Counter Strike for that talent. So I'm running double Anvil and Stave and Ox Dance. I ended up I was deciding here to swap back and forth, but I ended up committing to the Ox Dance instead. Alternatively, I could have also maybe swapped to High Tolerance instead, though I do really like Anvil and Stave in here. Anvil and Stave tends to give you more consistent brew reduction in larger pulls when there's a lot of mobs attacking you. So this is a great dungeon for that. You have a lot of like Geists and Enforcers that are just kind of always meleeing the tank, and we're pulling trash on the boss. So I just find that it's more consistent, but we are losing out on that elevated stagger cooldown reduction along with the 4% stagger effectiveness. So anyways, we're starting off by pulling double Enforcer. We're going into the Shadebringer. We're going to try to land a kick on it. I kind of messed up my camera angle there, popping our cow. And then I accidentally fat-fingered Fortifying Brew on pull, which was an accident. So definitely don't do that. Generally, you should be safe enough starting with your Black Ox and then following it up with Fortifying Brew if needed. Now, the priority in this pull is going to be this Dread Pulse Lich. Once they hit 50% health, they start pulsing out a aura that starts doing heavy group damage. So if you can dispatch this Lich as soon as possible, that is the better thing to do. Or alternatively, making sure that the Shadebringer dies so that there's none of those curse healing absorbs going out. So we just went on chicken there, but he had an immediate dispel, which is really good. And then one thing that I'm keeping an eye on are my disease stacks. These get applied via the ghouls, and it is a disease and it reduces your max health. And so whenever you see yourself at like 6 to 10 stacks, you can try to dispel. You can try to go higher, but I don't recommend it. I don't know what was going on. I was really struggling at landing kicks on stream here. I did this live actually, so if you want to watch the VOD, it should be available. Maybe I'll link that down below or on screen if I remember, of course. So this pull is going to be a little bit smaller. Normally I will go bigger here, but because I fat-fingered Fortifying Brew, I don't have it for about another 10 seconds or so, since we're going to be getting some pretty sizable reduction here. Now, I am not playing Fluidity of Motion, I'm playing Shadowboxing Treads, and the reason for that is because I feel like all the fights in here, all the boss fights are going to have multi-targets, and having that additional damage and additional Elusive Brawler stacks ends up being better in my opinion. Now, I'm going to do a video very shortly, probably today at the time of this video coming out, that I'm going to discuss Fluidity of Motion versus Shadowboxing Tread. So again, I'll try to link that on screen. Now, this poll, we have someone watching the cadaver. Normally it's me, but in this case, I believe Walks calmed out that he was going to be watching it. So I ended up looking at the Shadebringer for those Shadowbolt casts. Once that the Necrolite and the Gargoyle go down, that's kind of when we start chaining in those extra Enforcers. It's generally the way that I look at it is once I have my Black Ox back available, I'm going to be able to pull in more. So we're looking pretty good. Once again, I kind of used the cooldowns at the same exact time. I had my Ox active and I chained it with Fortifying Brew, which again, just a mess up. It's a kind of a cooldown cadence mistake, and it's kind of having a domino effect from that first pull, because the next pull we're doing is also scary, and now I'm not going to have CDs at all for it for a fair bit of time. So I'm really going to be relying on my group to make sure that they're CCing, that we're soothing the right targets, and I'm able to kite frequently. All right, so my shaman is also just small little optimization. If you're playing with the healer, make sure that the healer's always getting in position to free the quarry camp, that you liberate them, because pull cadence is really important in here. You want to make sure you're always gathering the next pull, and you don't want to sit around waiting for to liberate the quarry camp. Anyways, these plague horrors enrage and they have increased attack speed, so soothing them is really important. When it comes to the gargoyle, you can Tiger's Lust the player targeted, and it frees them from that grasp. Alternatively, you can always vanish, you can meld it, you can shift, you can freedom, you can disengage. There's a lot of ways out of it. If not, just make sure you're always tanking mobs on top of the gargoyle so you can get a lot of that damage out. Now, making sure that we're curse dispelling, the curse effect that is that nasty healing absorb and damage is really, really important as well. Luckily, we have two D curses in this group, and we have three people who can soothe. Now, I'm letting these guys just kind of hit me right now. My stagger is not too high. I actually just went up to 300% as I said that. But landing some nice purifying brews when we hit the upper echelon of our stagger will give me big healing with Guy Plins. I see a lot of comments on my YouTube channel where people are asking me like how I'm healing for so much. Generally speaking, Brewmaster has this really weird scaling with healing that the higher content you go, the more you're going to heal. Because of Guy Plin's Imperial Brew is generally why that's happening. Because when you're at 300% stagger and you clear half of it, that's 150% of your max health. And then you're healing yourself for 25% of that. And so that's where you're getting those really, really big Guy Plin's Imperial Brew healing that just kind of hits like an absolute truck and keeps you nice and healthy. So Brewmaster healing, because I'm doing really high keys and I'm always in deep stagger, I'm going to be healing for so much more than someone who's doing a plus 10. Anyways, this pull is kind of a cooldown recovery pull for me. There is a Graveblade in here, which does kind of hurt. And once the Graveblade hits you with his Tank Buster, you have to be really careful because the dragon's auto attacks deal additional frost damage. So when you have this debuff like I have right now for 8 seconds, this is when you're going to be taking a ton of damage. Once the dragon dies, we're going to be good to start chaining. I do have my Black Ox active. I am sitting on it just for a little bit here because I want to get it going at the start of the next pull. I don't want to send it here because while it looks like there's a lot of targets alive, because it was a Necrolite, 4 of those targets were fake. It was a cadaver that has only 1 health and can't die, and then the 3 like little warrior dudes. I should have chained this a lot quicker. That's something that I can definitely do better. Is I in throughout this run, I was kind of playing it safe, and I kind of regret playing it safe. I mean, it's good to play safe, right? Because if you know you can time the key with the damage, it'll obviously it's going to be you know you're going to time the key. But there's just like there's small optimizations that I can make around my cooldowns, and pulling faster for like the Fury Warrior is always a good thing to do. A slight common misconception right now is that I'm gonna see. I mean, I'm sure people will say is like, why aren't you letting your Sin Rogue and Feral Druid re-stealth? It's not that important anymore for Feral Druid or for Sin Rogue. At least that's what Accident Walks were telling me. So it's not a big deal that I'm chaining as often as I can now. Of course, they'll always appreciate a stealth reset if it makes sense. But if we're trying to go for speed and we're trying to pull quickly, it doesn't really matter. Maybe before a boss fight, if we're not pulling any trash on it, they'd like to drop. But I think on every boss in here, outside of the last boss, we are just going in with trash. Anyways, now this pull is just a Dreadlich. Once it's sub 50% health, that's when it starts to become dangerous. There's also a lot of leaping Geists in this pull, so you do want to be careful of that leap overlapping with Torment, overlapping with that Aura pulsing damage. As you can see, our group gets incredibly low. Now our Shaman's running Downpour, meaning that he's going to have a really consistent group healing for us all the time because we're playing that full melee Fizz comp, which is, of course, the Feral, the Warrior, and the Rogue. You can really swap in any of the specializations outside of Feral. So, like, you can play any Rogue spec in the Fizz comp. You can play any Warrior spec in the Fizz comp. But this is kind of like a classic. I love running this composition. This is like my favorite comp to run. It's not meta, but there's so much group synergy in this comp that it just makes it really fun to do most keys. Now that bolt goes down, this is obviously a point where we're going to be able to get restelts. This pull is kind of weird because you need to make sure that the gargoyle isn't picking anyone up during frontals or swirls, which requires you to pull at a very specific time, and also make sure you're using using abilities to get out of that grasp at a specific time as well. And so pulling the gargoyle immediately and then getting the dragon a couple seconds later generally makes it line up so no one will get caught. And then we're going to chain in this enforcer and rotting ghoul. Normally, these are mobs that I pull onto boss, but with a Sin Rogue in our group, they get a lot of funnel damage. So we're going to end up doing something a little different on boss instead. So unfortunately, Chicken ended up going down there. It was just a bolt that went off. I believe I had kick available, and so that's kind of on me. Definitely could have utilized other CC. I also had Para and Ring of Peace, and I'm sure our group had CC as well. I didn't notice that he was at 20% health, and that bolt connecting with him was pretty much an instant kill. So right now, what we're doing is we're kind of discussing what to do. Walks was asking me to pull this Necrolite onto the boss. Now, I've never done this before, so I was kind of trying to figure out exactly what to do. I set focus to the cadaver because that's going to be the thing that we have to kick. Now, the reason we're CCing out the Necrolite is because these mobs don't die until the Necrolite dies, and that means you can have infinite funnel. This would be really good if we were playing Arms Warrior instead of Fury, and obviously Sinrogue also gets a fair bit of funnel as well. And so, hopefully, in the future, when we're playing with maybe Sin Arms instead of Fury, this is going to go insane. But honestly, I wasn't super sold on the strategy. Now, these guys don't do a lot of damage to the tank, so it doesn't really matter. All you have to do is watch one kick. It's not very hard to watch the kick either. You just have it set focus and you kick when it's there. Um, but it's going to give us a, like, you're going to see walks. He's kind of popping off. Now, of course, a little bit of this is going to be pad, but we are going to see significantly more boss damage out of the Sinrogue in this pool. Now, there isn't really a good strat. I mean, there is. I have a strategy in my head, but it never works. But basically, if you put the rocks or the Saronite chunks to either side of the boss, that is going to be the best solution. So your tank can break one side, and then you always have the other side to stand behind, and you never have to worry about a pool being in the way. So you're going to see me always putting down markers. Here comes that Necrolite. I'm going to pair it again and then ring it to the edge of the room so no one accidentally cleaves it. We're going to make sure that I'm near one of these rocks, and then we're going to play in the middle of the room. So if you kind of like play a game of Snake with these Saronite charges or Saronite chunks, it's actually like a pretty chill boss fight. I see a lot of pugs, and it's weird because people I think are trained to try to put old like pools next to old pools or circles next to old circles. But this is a fight where you don't necessarily want to do that because you don't want the rocks to break next to each other because then you're going to be super, super limited on space. And so once again, we're just kind of backing up. Unfortunately, Static got hit by a rock there. We're going to quickly get a res off on him. I'm going to re-para. Basically, every cycle of these rocks, you can re-paralysis this mob. And we're going to bring it back in around like 30% health or so. But what I was saying is like, we're going to just keep looping around the room. And whenever we are close to the new forge, we're going to kind of like shift our position. So I'm always going to put down markers. Now, I didn't realize right here, he was actually closer to the forge behind us. I thought he was still closer to the other forge. And so we ended up having to adjust just a little bit here. Now, unfortunately, Static moved out and ended up taking 3 stacks of frost damage increase. And he's going to end up, I think, perishing here due to the aura damage that the boss is like pulsing out. So unfortunately, this is where things go uh, kind of wild. We do still have a battle res. The rocks are in such a terrible position, but I'm going to try to break this back one. We're going to get the kick. I do need to watch out for the paralysis that I have. We have a battle res. We're just Static died with the Saronite chunk being targeted at him. So he's in the rock. So we don't have line of sight until this thing breaks. So that's why we're not resing him immediately. And so now this boss is just going to take way longer than it should. So, kind of a not great execution on Garfrost, but we're gonna end up recovering quite nicely here. So boss is sub 35%, so we can now let that Necrolite come in eventually here, giving us a little bit of space for the rocks here. That's really good. Good heads up play by our healer Chicken. Now I'm going to actually change my mind and go towards the forge so we can start going back towards the forge on the other side of the room because those pools are going to start disappearing. Here comes that Necrolite. I get taunt on it and make sure that I'm getting enough threat. And once again, we're hiding behind the rock. So yeah, if you step out from the rock at any point, you're probably going to die, which is just which is not good. And Static learned that the hard way. So I'm not sure how many keys he's done this season, but Static's really good. I like playing with him. I think he's one of the better warriors that I've played with on NA servers. So one more spread for the rocks. My group was kind of panicking, I felt like, because I was putting down markers still, and I told people to go to the markers whenever I put them down, but we were kind of just dropping them wherever. It's not the end of the world. It's just an optimization for me to make my movement consistent, so my group can have consistent movement with damage uptime. That's really the only reason I like it. Does it really matter? Not really. As long as you have space to stand behind the rock based on where the boss is positioned, that should be plenty. We're going to commit Touch of Death here to finish off the boss, and now we are good to go. So this messed with my route a little bit because I didn't expect to pull the Necrolite on a boss. That was like a last minute decision that we kind of made. So this next pull is going to be a little weird. Now I'm going to throw a Keg Smash and hit a Blackout Kick, but the Lich like evaded my attacks for some reason. So I lost threat there. Luckily no one died. And this pull is going to be like a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to want to do in the near future is I'm going to actually rework how I pull this area. We ended up doing it in 3 pulls. I want to do it in 2. And so I'm gonna need to go further, grab some mobs, and then come back to this pole. But I don't like how far I have to travel. So I need to workshop a little bit how we're gonna do this because that Necrolite dying on boss means that this pole is either gonna be really small or yeah, just really small and inefficient. Or I'm gonna have to like workshop a way to grab more mobs. This is like a same old song and dance kind of thing. If there's a dread pulse lich in the pole, you need to make sure you're getting it down. Once it hits that 50% threshold, you need to tunnel it like real hard. Now, unfortunately, we uh have to like kill these mobs off to drop combat to get the quarry camp liberated. So we lost a lot of time here, in my opinion. When I look back at this footage and I look back at our route and our timing, I would like to uh, get this pool to be bigger, and I'd like to maybe have someone commit like a shadow meld there to get that to liberate that camp so I can get into this pool. Now, once again, this pool is also now going to be really small and kind of inefficient. So again, one thing I want to do is like get another mob in here or another pack, I should say. Same thing though, like Graveblade with Ice Proto Drake, Iceborne Proto Drake is kind of lethal, or not lethal, but just like a little scary. It's that Graveblade, the Frostbane Slash, I believe is what it's called. It makes you take like 100% more frost damage. And again, the Drake is doing frost damage on their auto attacks. And so when that happens, you're now taking more damage. The Frostbane Slash also, it also does frost damage. And so what ends up happening is if there's two of them in the pool, which I'll point out later, it also becomes really scary because when they go back to back, you're going to take a ton of damage. The Drake goes down, and now what happens is we're going to end up walking with this. There's no casters, so we're going to make the decision to come back to this quarry camp later. There's no reason for us to do it before the boss. We can always do it after the boss as well, and it gives me time to set up for setting up the next pull. So we're going to double this up. We have a Cold Wraith and we have a Gargoyle. Again, Gargoyle, we're going to use Root Effects on. I'm watching out for the disease stacks on me. I'm going up really quickly. I'm already at 8, 9. It's getting refreshed pretty often. So again, around this amount, I'm at 12. I should be dispelling myself soon. I don't know if I can't remember if I do. I rolled into the boss room to start RP. There's a little bit of role play before the boss actually becomes like engageable, if that's even a word. 18 stacks of this disease. Holy shit, I'm really risking it. So I finally detoxed myself at 20 stacks. It's not the end of the world. The Graveblade ended up dying, so I wasn't really in that much danger. It's just having less health obviously makes you more susceptible to getting just absolutely clapped. And now with these ghouls left, we can pull these on the boss. I was just asking my group, I'm like, are we good or do we want a combat drop? But they said it's good to go to boss. So Ick and Crick. This fight's super sleeper. I think at lower keys, you kind of just like zerg through it, but then in higher keys, it becomes really, really lethal. You have to have kind of coordinated kicks. So it's really important that you kick the shadow binds immediately. So I normally watch the one that we're on, and then someone will watch the one that's far, and then someone will kick the boss on the death bolt. Our goal is to kill the first Shaded Crick before he starts to cast the second Shadowbind. Then we swap, and then it's like I can use Tiger's Lust to remove it from someone. It is a slow effect, so if you have a way to like shapeshift, or you can vanish, or Fearless, the Berserker Rage for warriors, you can use all of these to cancel it as well. But that channel, that Shadowbind, is actually kind of sleeper. It does so much damage if you let it just go. So making sure you're getting rid of it for your group is really, really important. Also, we're really praying that the Death Bolt targets our warrior. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, it doesn't at all in this fight. When it's on our warrior, he can spell reflect it, and it ends up doing like 1.5% of the boss's health. So if you can get 3 of those off in a fight, 4 of those off in a fight, you're all of a sudden, this boss has like 6% less health natty. And so that would be like the most ideal circumstances. We get multiple death bolts per phase. So the first one goes on him, we reflect, we kick next, and then maybe it goes on him again or something along those lines. But getting at least 1 per phase is really, really good. But it's RNG, so you never know. And then also you have to make sure that your group is paying attention. So unfortunately, I moved over to Crick first. I don't end up kicking. I don't think I kicked there either. I think everyone was able to remove their snares. I see that it's now on Walks and Chicken, and the Cloak of Shadow was committed, and I think Chicken dispelled himself. Now it's on Static, it's on Axon. Axon can shift out of it as well. That one died a little slow, and now we're moving over. We don't have a kick here, but I think we're good. And then I end up Tiger's Listing, I think, later. But Blight Smash, also, you can always run out. Run out with this. Leave it at the edge of the room, especially if you're running with full melee. You want to give them, like, the ability to stay in melee. And if you drop it on top of the ad, they can't really hit the ad anymore. So just be mindful of that. Roll out, roll to a corner. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Rinse and repeat. As long as you clear those shadow binds, it's pretty chill. Lumbering fixation, don't provoke. Don't unless you want to mess with your friends. If you provoke this guy, he'll run 50% faster. And so it's really funny for like DPS who are like trying to like inch on the edge of his hitbox and try to get a little bit of damage in. If you provoke them, he'll just like start slamming them. It's kind of funny. But yeah, don't provoke. This is also a really good fight and a good example of why shadowboxing treads in this dungeon is actually not terrible, because always having two target cleave with shadowboxing treads is obviously pretty good. And then when the shade is out, you can get two target cleave as well. So again, I insta kick Shadowbind. The other one is on static. He uses Berserker Rage. Here is that circle again. I'm gonna run into the poop to drop it, and now we are trying to swap to. I wasn't, dude. I was not locked in for this run. I didn't I there's a lot of things in this run that I didn't do all that well, and like cooldown usage was a big one. There was like a targeting issue. I wasn't kicking. I wasn't using like Tiger Resist all the time efficiently. So running that out, and then we are heading over to Crick one last time. Deathbolt is on accent again. We are always watching to make sure that the Deathbolt is targeting our warrior. If it's not, we kick. If it is, we let him reflect. Simple as that. You can't count on pugs to pay attention, so if you're playing with like a pug warrior, don't expect them to. Still kick. You can always let it go off, and if they die, just be like, well, you should have spell reflected, you know? But it is what it is. All right, so about 9 minutes through this last area, we are kind of tight. We're tight on time, but we're going to have our group run over, and I'm going to run to the top of the hill because this wall does not drop until you liberate all the quarry camps. So I can get a little bit of a head start grouping this pull up. And so I'm going to get an immediate kick on this Cold Wraith, and then I'm going to start running here. I'm going to target it with Skull, the Grave Blade, so we can prio it. I'm going to para this Gloom Binder, or sorry, Cold Wraith, I believe it is. Or is it I don't know, caster. And now we're committing our Ox here. And we want to kill these Grave Blades, or at least one of the Grave Blades, before the fourth Tank Buster. So we're doing Cow on first, I believe Fortifying Brew on second, and then Trinket on third. As long as we can get the Frostbane Slashmen, the Grave Blades down, we should be okay. So here's the second set. My cow just faded. I should be pretty tanky still. I do want to commit something here, so I committed my Trinket a little bit earlier than I'd like to. But that's okay. I still have Fortifying Brew available. And now that the caster's dead, we're going to chain into the next caster. Oh, it is a Shadebringer or a Cold Wraith. Okay, for some reason I thought it was double Cold Wraith. But anyways, we leave one caster out, so we only have to manage one kick, and we just rotate between people. All right, so now Fortifying Brew is about to fade, so this Graveblade needs to die very soon, or I'm going to end up perishing. This is the pull that I took Ox Stance for. I don't think it was all that efficient, though I'm not going to lie, my Ox Stance charge stayed really low there. So I do think that potentially... Or does it not? Oh, you know what? I don't know if it stacks anymore. Anyways, it's I think it ended up actually being a decent play. Having two deaths on the first boss made our first boss split really, really slow. And there was definitely some pull cadence things that I could have done better to pull faster and more efficiently. And so once we figure out those kinks, I think we'll have a fair bit of time in this key. Now, what our shaman did there is he ran all the way up into the cave and he pulled an additional caster into this pack. So you can see that Cold Wraith running down. I'm going to get Thread on it once we have a range kick. And now we have a pretty big pull. We have decided and realized that the Leaping Geists are actually really scary on the last mini boss because of the reflecting shield. During that, there's just a ton of damage going out, and people can get wombo comboed pretty easily with the Geists. So we've decided to actually pull it down into this pull, and then we'll walk with the Graveblade up because that's going to be the last mob alive. Once the Dreadlich dies, our next prio is the Cold Wraith, because once the Cold Wraith dies, then we're free to move up to that last mini boss. Like I've said, Graveblades aren't that bad when they're by themselves, but when you have a Graveblade with a Drake or a Graveblade with another Graveblade, that's when the shit gets real lethal. So Cold Wraith is going to go down. Now we're going to just run with this Graveblade. Again, full melee comp. We're going to have like pretty full uptime there. I got clipped by that rock because I'm bad. And we're going to keep moving on. So it's kind of a far run, but we figured again, this guy, yeah, it sucks to do him by himself, but it is what it is. It's not the end of the world, and we'd rather be safe than sorry. So we're pulling this guy with about 6 minutes left. We should get him down by the 4.5 minute mark, and then we'll have 4.5 for boss, ideally. I committed Touch of Death there. On the Graveblade, I could have held it for Glaciath, this mini boss, but the problem with holding it for Glaciath is that then you probably may or may not have it for the intermission, and you want to be able to deploy a Touch of Death in the intermission if you need it to make sure you're getting rid of that AoE damage, which again, I'll point out once we get to the boss. Now, this guy's pretty annoying. Pulling trash onto him is fine. Like the pack that we did earlier, you could definitely get into this, but we noticed that in higher keys, people start to take a lot of damage from just a combination of all the different damage sources in this pull. So we decided to just single target down and be bored for a little bit. As a tank, you want to give a lot of breath between Glaciath and the pools that you guys leave down, those ice patches, because I see a lot of tanks try to sit on the edge, but then Glaciath will turn at your group, and then you can't hit him because he's standing basically on the edge. And if you're either choosing to hit into the shield and do no damage, or stand in the frost on the ground and then take a ton of damage and die. So always give a lot of room. Now I'm giving a lot of room here, but my idea is that we're full melee. We don't need the whole full hallway, and the closer we get to getting into the boss room, the better. So I want to end and kill this guy like pretty much butt up against this ice wall. So 2%, this is like perfect timing. And then we're going to be able to head into the boss room. So it's like a minor time save. If you try to really optimize your area space like earlier in the hallway, you just have to run so much further once you kill him, which is just not fun because you can't mount. I don't know if it dictates like RP or anything like that. But really quick, look up in the corner, Ox Dance at 10 stacks. Just Ox Dance isn't good in a lot of this dungeon, but it is good for where you need it. And that's why Ox Dance is such a weird talent, because it's really hard to know when it's actually useful without like looking at logs or looking back at footage like I am here. And it's obviously just kind of annoying. It's a weird talent. But basically all it does is based on your health, you'll consume that Ox charge if you get hit for more than 60% of your max health, and you stagger like an additional, I don't know, it's like give or take 17% extra damage. So being at like 75% stagger or 70% stagger, you're now staggering like 85% of the damage. So it'll let you live a little bit better. Also, Zen State, for example, also helps mitigate. So near like low health, you could be ending up staggering most of the damage you're taking, which is pretty good. So this boss sucks for full melee comps because we don't get full uptime on the boss because someone always has to run out. But anyways, we're going into the intermission. We are wanting to position ourselves near the caster that spawns. Get a kick. I do have an Ox statue down, which I'm going to end up provoking that Ox statue when all these mobs come in, so I get threat immediately. And then we are focusing the Plague Spreader. Now, we didn't have Lust on pull or for this. It just came up now. I'm going to get a Ring of Peace there. Our melee did a weird job. They all ran together, but they should have moved with me and then could have had uptime, but not a big deal. You want this Plague Spreader to die before the next Bone Infusion. Now, unfortunately, it was very, very close here, so our healer has to make sure we're really, really, really healthy. He's going to commit Link, but we were also calming like, hey, we're going to Lust the next intermission, so committing Link here, we're going to be safer on the next one because we have Lust as basically a healer cooldown and a damage cooldown, and we'll be able to kill the ad quicker, so you won't have to heal as long. And so it's going to end up being like kind of a both. It's going to be a damage cooldown and a healing cooldown. In a full melee comp, or even when you have one melee, you always want to position yourself next to one of the bone piles. So the melee who's targeted by the Rime Blast from the dragon actually is able to stand next to these pools or bone piles and still hit the boss. And then obviously the knockback, you want to get knocked in the direction of the bone pile that you're going to be keeping the boss next to. It's a little bit of uptime or uptime loss. You can see that I put down a knock statue there. Once again, whenever I get knocked back on the second set, I drop a knock statue because I'm like, all the mobs are going to run to us. I'm going to be able to AoE taunt them when they come in. We're setting focus to the Plague Spreader. We commit Lust. We have Avatar being committed, Berserk being committed, and I think Rogue has cooldowns as well. I just can't track them because this game is dumb. Rip Omni CD. And then we are just running as a group, making sure that we get a kick right before these kind of circles come out, so the ad will actually move. But look how much faster that ad died. It died about 7 seconds faster than it did last time. So now we're going to be nice and healthy. So when Tyrannus does his bone infusion, the healer doesn't really need to worry about people getting one shot or taking like a double tick of damage from both the bone infusion and the plague horror or plague whatever man. And now at this point, once sub 25%, chances are you can probably quote unquote tunnel. So when the next intermission starts, or the next ad wave, we're going to tunnel boss regardless and just make sure we're kicking, though I think we end up killing him beforehand. Now, if we had Zero deaths in here. Probably would have had way more time, and I think also the route cadence. So I think we have so much time to get in here. I think a 20 is going to be doable. It's just going to be really tight. So I'm hoping my group can give it a shot at some point this weekend once we all have time to play together again. But this was a really fun run. It was really fun playing with I haven't played with Static since last season. I haven't played with Axton really since last season, and same with Walk. So this is refreshing to play with kind of a new group of people, though I don't know if this will be obviously something that we permanently do. Carrot was just rating, definitely W Carrot. I want him back. I miss the Arms Warrior overall. He normally does like 220k in here, so looking forward to getting him back in here. And then of course CL. So anyways, that was the run. My overall was a little low. Part of that was dropping Ox stance. Part of that was just pull cadence, not optimal cooldown usage. There's a lot of room for improvement in here, but I hope you guys enjoyed the run in the commentary. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.